Writing. The operating room had gone silent. Not the ordinary silence of concentration. Not the tense silence that comes before a difficult procedure. This was the kind of silence that felt heavy, hopeless, and terrifying. The monitors flashed warnings. The country's most powerful business leader was slipping away, and some of the finest specialists money could buy stood frozen by a problem none of them could solve. Then, from the back of the room, a quiet voice spoke. A man wearing worn-out shoes, a simple shirt beneath an old medical coat, and eyes marked by years of sacrifice stepped forward. Just hours earlier, people had laughed at him. They had called him a country doctor. Within the next few minutes, he would save the life of a CEO worth billions. And in doing so, he would reveal a truth that nobody in that hospital was prepared to face. Before we begin this emotional story, please take a moment to like this video. Comment below if you believe kindness and second chances still matter in today's world. Share this story with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching stories. Also tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know which corner of the world is joining us today. Dr. Ethan Walker had never cared much about titles. For nearly 15 years, he had worked in the small farming town of Willow Creek, a quiet community surrounded by endless fields, dusty roads, and hard-working families. The town had one small clinic, outdated equipment, and a constant shortage of funding. Most doctors who arrived left within a year. Ethan stayed, not because the pay was good, not because the conditions were easy, but because the people needed him. Every morning before sunrise, Ethan would prepare breakfast for his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Ever since his wife Sarah passed away after a sudden illness 7 years earlier, Ethan had carried two responsibilities alone. He was both a father and a doctor. Some days he spent 14 hours treating patients before rushing home to help Lily with homework. Other nights he sat beside sick elderly residents who had nobody else to care for them. His life wasn't glamorous. His clothes were simple. His car was old. His bank account rarely had enough savings. But in Willow Creek, Ethan was trusted. And trust was worth more than wealth. One rainy autumn evening, Ethan received a letter that would change everything. The letter came from the prestigious Northbridge Medical Center in the city. At first, Ethan assumed it was a mistake. But as he read the invitation, his heart raced. The hospital was hosting an advanced medical conference attended by some of the nation's top surgeons and specialists. Ethan had been invited because of a research paper he had quietly published months earlier regarding a rare vascular condition. Few people had noticed the paper. Apparently, the right people had. Lily's eyes sparkled when she heard the news. She hugged her father tightly and told him how proud she was. For the first time in years, Ethan felt excited. Maybe this was an opportunity. Maybe someone would finally see the value of the work being done in small-town medicine. The following week, Ethan drove several hours to the city. The towering buildings seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. Luxury cars lined the streets. People moved quickly with expensive suits and important schedules. Everything felt far removed from Willow Creek. When Ethan arrived at Northbridge Medical Center, he immediately felt out of place. Doctors and executives filled the conference halls. Many wore designer clothing. Many discussed multi-million-dollar research projects. Many spoke with confidence that bordered on arrogance. Ethan quietly took his seat. At first, nobody paid attention to him. Then someone noticed the name tag. Willow Creek Community Clinic. The reactions began almost immediately. Curious smiles. Dismissive glances. Whispers. One doctor jokingly referred to Ethan as a country doctor. Another laughed and asked whether he still treated patients with farm equipment. Several others joined in. They weren't openly cruel. In some ways, that made it worse. Their mockery came wrapped in polite smiles. Ethan remained silent. Years of hardship had taught him that arguing with pride rarely changes minds. He focused on the conference instead. Hours later, the keynote speaker took the stage. Her name was Victoria Sinclair. She was the CEO of Sinclair Global Industries, one of the largest technology corporations in the country. Victoria had built her company from nothing. Magazines called her a visionary. Investors called her brilliant. Employees called her demanding but fair. At 52 years old, she had become one of the most influential women in business. As she began speaking, the audience listened attentively. Her story was inspiring. Her confidence was undeniable. Then something unexpected happened. Victoria paused. Her hand reached toward her chest. Her expression changed. The microphone slipped from her fingers. And she collapsed. Panic erupted. Medical professionals rushed forward. Emergency teams arrived within seconds. The conference transformed into chaos. Victoria was transferred immediately to the hospital's emergency department. News spread rapidly throughout the building. The CEO was in critical condition. The hospital's top specialists assembled. Tests revealed a frightening problem. Victoria had an extremely rare vascular abnormality that had gone undetected for years. A dangerous complication was now threatening her life. The situation became increasingly desperate. One specialist suggested surgery. Another warned surgery might kill her. A third proposed an alternative treatment. No one agreed. Time was running out. As Ethan reviewed the medical scans from a distance, something caught his attention. His heart pounded. The pattern looked familiar. Very familiar. In fact, it resembled the exact condition he had researched and written about months earlier. The same paper most people had ignored. The same paper that had earned him the conference invitation. Gathering his courage, Ethan approached the medical team. Before he could finish explaining, several doctors dismissed him. Some barely concealed their annoyance. Others reminded him that this was an elite medical center. One specialist openly questioned whether a rural physician should be offering advice. Ethan stepped back, but he couldn't ignore what he was seeing. A human life was at stake. Pride no longer mattered. Status no longer mattered. He approached again and calmly outlined his observations. This time, a younger surgeon listened. The surgeon requested Ethan's research paper. Within minutes, the room's atmosphere changed. People began reading. Eyes widened. Conversations shifted. Suddenly, the so-called country doctor wasn't being ignored anymore. His research described an innovative treatment pathway specifically designed for rare cases like Victoria's. More importantly, he had already successfully applied similar techniques in emergency situations involving limited resources. The specialists began reviewing his recommendations. Every minute increased Victoria's risk. Finally, one senior physician made a decision. They would proceed using Ethan's approach. What followed was one of the most intense medical procedures anyone in that hospital had witnessed. Hours passed. The operation pushed everyone to their limits. Complications emerged. New challenges appeared. Several times the situation nearly collapsed. Yet, Ethan remained calm. Years of practicing medicine without perfect equipment had trained him to adapt under pressure. He guided the team through critical decisions. Slowly, impossibly, Victoria's condition stabilized. The monitors began showing improvement. Vital signs strengthened. The danger started fading. And then, after countless exhausting hours, the impossible happened. Victoria survived. Relief swept through the hospital. Doctors embraced. Nurses cried. Family members prayed in gratitude. The woman everyone believed might die was alive. Thanks largely to the man they had mocked. News of the successful procedure spread quickly. Hospital administrators wanted interviews. Medical journals requested statements. Conference attendees suddenly remembered Ethan's name. The same people who had laughed now praised his brilliance. But Ethan wasn't interested in attention. The next morning, he simply wanted to return home to Lily. Before leaving, however, he received a message. Victoria Sinclair wanted to see him. When Ethan entered her recovery room, Victoria looked weaker than before, but her eyes carried remarkable strength. She listened quietly as doctors explained everything that had happened. For a long moment, she simply stared at Ethan. Then tears formed in her eyes. Because for the first time, she fully understood how close she had come to losing everything. Her company, her future, her family, her life, and she understood who had saved it. Over the following weeks, Victoria learned more about Ethan's story. She discovered the struggles of Willow Creek, the aging clinic, the shortage of equipment, the countless patients who depended on one dedicated doctor. She learned about Lily. She learned about Sarah. She learned about the sacrifices Ethan had made without ever asking for recognition. The more she learned, the more deeply moved she became. 3 months later, Willow Creek received unexpected visitors. Luxury vehicles arrived in town. Residents gathered curiously. Nobody understood what was happening. Then Victoria Sinclair stepped out. She walked directly to the aging clinic. The building showed decades of wear. Leaking ceilings, outdated machines, cramped treatment rooms. Victoria toured every corner. Some residents felt embarrassed. But Ethan wasn't ashamed. This clinic represented years of service. Years of compassion. Years of saving lives with whatever resources were available. A week later, the announcement came. Victoria's foundation would fully fund the construction of a modern medical center for Willow Creek. New equipment, advanced technology, expanded services, scholarship programs, community health initiatives. The investment totaled millions of dollars. The town was stunned. Many residents cried openly. For generations, people had accepted limited healthcare as an unavoidable reality. Now everything was changing. Construction began almost immediately. Months later, the new facility opened. Families filled the halls. Children explored waiting rooms. Elderly residents smiled through tears. The dream had become reality. Yet the most emotional moment came during the opening ceremony. Victoria stood before the crowd and shared a message. She explained that expertise does not belong exclusively to famous institutions. Compassion does not depend on wealth. Wisdom does not require luxury. Sometimes the greatest heroes are found in places society overlooks. Sometimes the people doing the most important work receive the least recognition. And sometimes a country doctor is exactly the person capable of saving the world. The audience rose to their feet. Applause echoed across the town. Many looked toward Ethan. He stood quietly beside Lily. The attention made him uncomfortable. But Lily squeezed his hand proudly. For years she had watched her father sacrifice everything for others. Now the world was finally seeing what she had always known. That true greatness isn't measured by titles. It's measured by service. Years passed. The medical center flourished. Young doctors arrived to learn from Ethan. Patients traveled from distant regions seeking treatment. Research programs expanded. Lives improved. And through it all, Ethan remained the same humble man he had always been. He still greeted every patient by name. He still worked long hours. He still believed every life mattered equally. Because success had never changed his heart. One evening, long after the crowds had disappeared and the celebrations had ended, Ethan stood outside the medical center watching the sunset. Beside him stood Lily, now preparing for medical school herself. The sky glowed with shades of gold and orange. The fields stretched endlessly into the distance. For a moment, Ethan thought about the journey. The ridicule, the hardship, the loneliness, the years of sacrifice. And he realized something profound. Every difficult moment had led here. Not to fame, not to recognition, but to purpose. A purpose that had touched countless lives. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with family and friends, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories like this to people who may need hope today. Before the story ends, tell us in the comments, have you ever met someone who was underestimated by others but turned out to be extraordinary? As the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, Ethan and Lily walked toward the medical center together. A father and daughter, a legacy of kindness and service, and a reminder that the world often overlooks its quiet heroes. The people who work without applause. The people who choose compassion over recognition. The people who continue helping others even when nobody notices. Because in the end, the man they called a country doctor never needed their approval. He only needed the courage to keep doing what was right. And that courage saved a life, transformed a town, inspired a generation, and proved a truth that will never grow old. The value of a person is not determined by where they come from, how much money they have, or what others think of them. It is determined by the lives they touch, the kindness they show, and the difference they make when it matters most. And sometimes, the quietest hero leaves the deepest mark on the world.